I'm my biggest challenge. I'm in a space now where I can accept that my assumptions of what is supposed to be meant for me need to be challenged and addressed head on so I can really dissolve those and move into the actual true purpose that lies ahead for me.
Hello and welcome to the Bold Black Girls podcast. I'm Aries.
And I am Kim.
And we are going to kick this episode off today with our Bold Black Girl of the Month segment. As you can see, we have a special guest, Jenae Butler. And we're going to do this segment first, and then she's going to stick around with us for the rest of the conversation. So, Kim, I'm going to let you kick us off so we can learn more about Jenae.
Absolutely. So welcome, Jenae, and thank you for joining us today for Bold Black Girl of the Month for the month of August. I know we reached out to you. I think, Aries, you reached out to her a couple of weeks ago, and we have just noticed you. We've been watching you for quite some time. I think we all met at a networking event at Microsoft through their BAM network. I think it's Black Employees at Microsoft. Mm-hmm. And Microsoft had the best networking events with great hors d'oeuvres, along with great content. So we don't want to, miss out on that. So we saw you working, and you made some moves and strides. And then recently we saw some updates from you across LinkedIn with all of the social injustice. So we'll get into that. So can you tell us, Jenae, just a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what are you doing these days?
Yeah, absolutely. Number one, thank y'all for having me. It's truly an honor to be on this podcast. It's all about Black women, and anything that's about supporting Black women, I'm 100% for. So it's an honor to be here with y'all. But a little bit about myself. Jenae Butler from Atlanta, Georgia originally, but I call myself a woman of the South because I move so much. I'm never in one city for too long, so work has moved me around quite a bit, but grew up in Atlanta, also grew up in Houston, went to school in Atlanta, made my way back to Texas, made my way to the Carolinas, made my way to Chicago. I've been all over the place in my 27 years of living. But as it stands, I'm a technical program manager. Actually, that title changes after tomorrow. I am an enablement program manager for Google Cloud. Yep, I got a new role that I start first thing 9 a.m. tomorrow that I'm really excited about. But
wow.
Work at Google. I've been at Google for about a year. They snatched me up from Microsoft, where I was a variety of things. I've never held one title for too long, and so I would call myself a tech creative, a disruptive tech creative that is all about empowering our community one way or another. I've always had a few skill sets that my 9 to 5 has underutilized. So I use my 5 to 9 to really let that bad boy show. And I think we've seen a lot of that in recent months. I published a deck called Standing United to the audience. If you guys haven't heard of it, it's a 14-ish slide deck as it relates to what happened with George Floyd and how that kind of kicked off our summer, while also talking about what it means to be an ally and how to go about that. And so I've been, in essence, teaching our aspiring allies how to let go of those biases and those assumptions and really lean into this movement. And there's so many directions I can go with that, but that's who I am. People call me JB for short. I work in the tech space. I live, breathe, die by this. Same with the Black community. Whatever I can do to uplift us through my platform, that's what I'm about. So
I love everything you've just said. Number one, woman of the South. So you're not afraid to pretty much pivot for a job and move to a different state, different role. So you're staying progressive. I love that. You don't seem to be afraid, so you're very bold. You are very bold.
And this is why she is
The bold black
Girl of the
girl.
Month.
Exactly.
And the things that you were just talking about, I know we'll dig more into it. We want to learn more about kind of how you got to this place, because that's the stuff that really was like, I'm like, okay, these are really bold times for companies where we watched different companies kind of step out a little bit and say the words Black Lives Matter for the first time. So watching you on LinkedIn, which is our professional platform of choice, right? Nowadays, it's like, if you're not on there, it's like, do you exist, right? So yeah, I would love to hear more about kind of how you, and maybe we could tap into like what you feel like your purpose is and where you feel like you're going as to how you kind of got into this, got to this point.
The whole concept of purpose is something that I've always been intrigued by since college. I feel like college was like for all of us, like, it was a very transformative time, right? Like, we were really stepping into that phase of our life where we were really getting to know ourselves, where our interests lied, and what direction we really wanted to go in. And I had so many people around me who knew what they wanted to do. I've always tried to put myself in places and environments that had the people that I wanted to be like. And so I'm looking around and everybody's like, I want to be a doctor and I'm going to do the next 12 years of this, that, and the third, or I want to be in tech and I know I'm going to do this, that, and the third. They had all of their full plan like scoped out. And I never did. I moved a lot. And I think one thing that comes with moving a lot and just kind of, I think military children can relate to this too. I'm not a military child, but the same thing happens. You move so frequently and you're constantly starting over and rebuilding. You have a fleeting sense of purpose, a fleeting sense of self. And so purpose for me is something that I'm still uncovering. I'm still learning about what that is. I've finally gotten to a position in the last couple of years where I hope we're all women of the Lord, because I can't do nothing but brag to my Lord.
Oh yes, come on. We welcome that here. We preach here frequently. So
yes, the way that God has just moved in my life and the things that he has done to really align me inch by inch to really get to know myself, it's been an ongoing trying process, and I'm still in the midst of that. So I can't tell you what my exact purpose is because I'm still uncovering that. And I'm still unlearning a lot of the things that brought me to this point. I'm at a point in my life now where those behaviors, thought patterns, and I guess you could say assumptions or that mindset is no longer serving me. And so I'm unlearning a lot of those things so I can make room for what's next, so I can really dive deeper into what purpose looks like.
I love that. Alignment has been our word this year.
Yes.
Kim and I have been talking about yeah, we've been talking about alignment and just like making sure that whatever we're doing is in alignment with what we feel the path is. I'm with you on that whole, I can't be like, my purpose is blah. It's every day. Every day is my purpose. I'm just listening to what God is leaning me towards. That's the way that I feel like we should be doing that. And I think a unique thing, because you brought up your age. Number one, there's no age to being a bold Black girl or title, right? So though you're still early and fresh in your career, you still are making these moves. And I'm a believer of like, I don't know if you guys have read the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. And he talks about how these people who are really great at certain things, they were just born at the right time. They were born in like things just were at the right time in history, in the year. Like if you're born at a certain point, you can be a really great hockey player because your birth date matters, when the cutoffs and all these different things. Like these are things that they find. And I think that where you're at 27, when I came to Texas, I was 27. It wasn't the same environment. So you're in like a super awesome space at your age. Who knows what this is gonna, flourish into by the time you're our age, right?
Who knows? Exactly. I think that's the fun of it all. Who I am and what I've done, none of it was planned. I walked into college and I got so much anxiety from my friends who had their lives planned out. And I felt so much pressure to have my life planned out, but I could only do so much. I just said I wanted to get into tech. That was like as far as it went for me. And everything else, I was open and willing to leave that up to God. Like I couldn't define it any further. And so trying to step into whatever he has meant for me and designed for me has been a ride. I don't know what, I even me taking the job at Google, right? None of it was planned. None of it was intentional. And so I'm really I'm not going to say I'm going with the flow. There's a lot of intention and purpose there. But I'm really, my faith is really what's driving all of it. My faith and trusting God and faith and trust in myself too, right? Like imposter syndrome has been a common theme of my entire life. I think a lot of Black women experience that. And keeping imposter syndrome and fighting that and fighting the conflicts that come with that. I'm just taking it day by day. I'm trying to unlearn what imposter syndrome has taught me and really trying to propel in whatever direction it is that God wants me to go in. And I'm leaving it at that. And so far it's worked out in my favor.
So you touched on some great points, because at 27, even before 27, I was like, oh, this is how my life is going to be. Mm-hmm. Realizing that my life wasn't going to be anything like I planned. I had to follow the will of God. And I think that's what you're doing, is you're really following that plan. Like you said, going with the flow, because you can't force your plans. We have to go with the flow of God's plan.
Right.
So we're also in a season of trust and trusting ourselves, but more so trusting God.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
It's a faith journey. So let's go into that. Like who have you been inspired by? Like what's your?
Yes. Who have I been? So I am a very empathetic woman. I am a people's person. My heart is big. I have a friend and he and I are very similar in how we treat people. And I always make fun of him and I say, your heart is bigger than your head, because that also applies to me. My heart is huge. And so because I've grown up in so many different environments, I've really learned to cherish the people around me. So I've always been inspired by the people around me. They've always been guiding stars, North Stars for me, to at least show me a direction that I can go in. But I think one of the people that inspires me the most, it's not cliche at all, but Michelle Obama, like she really does something for my spirit. I will remember when I was working at Microsoft, one of my last roles, it was a really trying role, honestly. It was just one of those seasons where I had a skill set to offer and I had a lot to offer to this job, but it just wasn't being received that way. And it was a huge mental conflict for me. And it took a lot out of me. And I remember sitting in my car and listening to her book on audio, Becoming.
Yes.
And crying because her story sounded so much like mine. And I'm like, oh my God, this is coming from the First Lady of the United States. Like I've always found Michelle to be extremely authentic and honest and raw in who she is, but listening to her story and listening to how she got there, it would send chills up my spine because I'm going through the same exact thing. And I'm like, girl, you mean to tell me the Lotus
First Lady, right?
Like,
forever First Lady.
Yes. And so I've always found myself to be very drawn to her through her elegance and her intelligence, but even more so when I heard her backstory that got her there. And I would consider her probably like a huge inspiration, someone that I really look up to and hope to embody some of those type of characteristics when I keep saying when I grow up, but
girl, look, you can say it. Whenever I grow up, 27, from 27 to now, I definitely feel like I've grown up. Okay. So, yes,
on the way.
Things happen.
Exactly. So we're fans of Michelle Obama as well. And you talked about some of the adversity sitting in the car, and you were thinking about those challenges. So can you kind of share with us what is some of the adversity you faced, during your journey? I know you've only been here 27 years, but you've done a lot in your 27 years already.
Thank you. I think my biggest adversity is myself. To be honest, I put so many mental constraints on myself. I've embodied so many assumptions, and I'm a very imaginative woman. I have a mind, a creativity and an imagination that, if not controlled, can go off into 1,000 different directions, and so much so that I can convince myself that things are worse than what they are, or I can convince myself that I am not seen or respected or heard in a way that I want to be. And it's me bullying myself, right? It's whatever imposter syndrome does to us that makes us feel less than, like we are not worthy of X, Y, and Z. People feel X, Y, and Z of us. And that's been my biggest constraint. There's so many people who come in and out of my life, whether for periods of time or for short conversations. And there's always been words of advice and encouragement to push me along. But it's the internal challenges that I've had that made it hard to receive that and walk in spirit of that and really honor and accept that. So I really think my biggest challenge has been overcoming this false identity that I've had of myself for my entire life. Moving state to state, moving city to city, that has an impact on a small child. I never really got to know myself because I was constantly starting over and rebuilding and starting from scratch, right? I was constantly in a space of recreating, to the point where I never got that opportunity to get to know me, what I liked. I was molding to the environments around me. So I'm very adaptable, which is great. But in that, I allow the projections of people, places, and things to tell me who I am. And that has been the biggest challenge. I've been trying to move in spirit of the projected assumptions of what I should be doing, how I should be moving, and where I should be, and letting that tell me where life is going to take me, when God literally has a completely different direction for me to go in. And so I'm hitting like these, I would find myself hitting these really difficult crossroads or these roadblocks, because purpose is telling me to go left, but everybody else is telling me to go right. And so it's like, what do I know best? And in those moments, it would be my friends. My relationship with God has grown the older that I get. And so who I am now and where I am now and where my faith is wasn't as strong as it was a couple of years ago, or within the last 5 years. It has really grown exponentially. But I'm my biggest challenge. I'm in a space now where I can accept that my assumptions of what is supposed to be meant for me need to be challenged and addressed head on, so I can really dissolve those and move into the actual true purpose that lies ahead for me. So,
I love it. I know. I mean, because you're talking about getting roots, right? Not being able to establish those roots in the different places, right? So yes, I agree. Agility is great, right? But then when you haven't really dug your roots in, then you feel kind of like you're wavering, around a little bit. And I could totally relate to that. I think you're already ahead of the game by being 27 and talking about what you're talking about right now. This is stuff that I just started talking about in the last 5 years, you know what I mean?
Same.
Or less. Okay. Because building that relationship with God is how you are able to see clear. He speaks in whispers. If you can't hear him because you got all these distractions going on,
at you, right?
I mean, come on. It is not. It doesn't. You limit yourself. I just think it's something that a lot of us do as Black women. But just in general, when you don't have that relationship, sometimes you do that because you don't really understand how much is available to you out there.
Yeah.
So,
I could definitely relate as well. You aren't even listening to God. You're listening to the people around you. You're listening to the culture. So, and you talked about that. You said that all of your peers, they had their plans together. So looking back on that and that younger self, because again, you're still young and you're doing some amazing things. What would you give your younger self as advice? Because I'm going to share this with my daughter who's 20. So what advice would you give someone her age or
coming out of college?
We all have things that we've gravitated towards, but we never invested time, skill set, or craft into. If I had to tell younger me or just younger people, whatever that skill set is that you can get lost in, and you just, it's something that's almost therapeutic for you. Wherever you find yourself, whatever space you find yourself gravitating towards, and wherever you find yourself making an impact, even if it doesn't follow your career goals or what, you know, the expectations are of what your life should be, invest in that. I wish my younger self knew that me coding and creating my own layouts for MySpace back when that was popping, I wish I would have known I was flirting with a six-figure skill. I wish I would have put more time and investment in that, because I would get lost in it. But I was told that I couldn't do that. I was told, no, you have to go and be a nurse. You have to be a lawyer. You have to fall into these very specific categories. And so me wanting to code and to create was looked down upon, right? It was frowned upon because we didn't see too many Black creatives like that, or like that were, at least where I come from, right? I come from a small country family. So like very traditional Christian beliefs, right? We fall into very specific buckets about what is acceptable and what isn't. And they're looking at that type of creativity as not making any money. But, you know, fast forward, you can make money off of that. I wish I would have known to just hold on to the things that I really care about instead of letting people tell me otherwise.
That is so good.
So I would tell that to anybody who's trying to figure out what purpose is. Look at the things that you gravitate towards. No matter how small or how you feel that it might not make you money, if it's meant for you, it's meant for you. There's going to be space for you. And we're living in a world that craves authenticity more than anything these days. And if you can move with that craft and that creativity and whatever it is that you can find yourself getting lost in and really build around, do that, because it's coming from heart. It's coming from an authentic place. And that's what people want these days. That can make you money. You don't have to worry about what the statistics show. If it's for you, it's always going to be for you.
Because your gifts will make room for you.
Yeah.
They will make room.
So we're kind of coming upon time for this particular segment, but I want to talk about your document, Stand United. What sparked that, and what do you see? Where do you see that going? Let's talk a little bit about that.
So it's been a heavy summer.
Yes.
Yes.
Nothing about this summer has been graceful or light in any way. So that deck came from the weight of that experience of being a Black woman living in America, knowing what we got to go through, and knowing that I want to be more active in this space, right? Especially in the space of racial equity, I really want to be more active because I'm a woman of people, I'm a woman of passion, and so like the community is always on my mind. How can I make a bigger impact? And so I figure I can't do that if I don't even know how to like make sense of my own thoughts. So that deck was me trying to thought process one. I'm a very organized person, and so I'll create a PowerPoint deck just to walk me through how to use a tool at work, right? Like me making a PowerPoint deck, that's nothing. I do that normally. But this deck was for me, I really put myself in the position of someone who doesn't know. So I'm like, if it were me, what would I need to know in order to learn and take action immediately? But then at the same time, I was thinking about the team that I'm moving away from as we speak. I'm the only Black woman out of 30 engineers, right? A great team, though. I love them with all my heart. They are great. But if you know engineers are engineers. They care about what they care about, and everything else can kind of fly over their head. And so I didn't want to see them set up for failure. So I'm trying to process my own thoughts, but I'm also trying to equip my coworkers at the same time. So I created that deck, one, to get it all out, but to also give them something so they can go into these conversations and not be completely caught off guard. So the scope of that deck, 30 people wide at most. Nothing that has come after that was intended whatsoever. Wow. It was really just those 30 people. I pushed it out to my manager Monday morning. By Tuesday, everything changed.
So what happened after that?
Yes.
Girl, what happened after? Well, okay, so it started with speaking engagements from June 2nd to now. I've probably done over 30 of those. I've talked to thousands of people at this point. I stood up a website. So now we got standingunited.co, which is your racial equity hub. I am featured. Our CEO for Google is Sundar. He speaks to like all these commitments that we have to kind of really combat this, at least within our ecosystem. My content is hosted on our Google-wide website that talks about racial equity. I'm one of the primary resources. My deck has become a resource for so many working groups within Google, but it's also made its way to classrooms. It's also made a global impact. I've seen, I think the last time I checked, I might have been at like 10 or 11,000 views on that, but that's from the internal version because I also have an external. So it's globally visible and acknowledged, speaking engagements left and right. I'm moving into this space now. That's what
Go with it. Go with it.
Well,
going with it.
It's gonna be at my job too.
Like
Look,
you guys, right? Like so many things along those lines. Like I'm being exposed and having an opportunity to share my thoughts and opinions in a way that I never had before. So it's been beautiful. I mean, this exposure left and right. I'm trying to do a TED Talk now. I'm like, shoot,
yes, why not? Why not? Right? You're gonna be also this deck will be at Software One, it'll be at Salesforce. Like we're about to start sharing it with everybody.
Yes.
So we really appreciate you doing that. I just applaud your boldness, your courageousness, right?
Like admire it. Yes.
I was like, Bold Black Girl of the Month. Kim was like, duh. Like, yeah. I'm like, we're done with this.
I think her presentation is a favorite on my bookmark. Literally. Seriously.
Thank you.
Seriously.
That really, and I want y'all to know that means a lot to me for one reason. I don't think much of the deck. If anybody asks me about it, I'm like, I put that together in 3 hours and I shot it out. Grammar mistakes and all. Like there was so much wrong in terms of like how I thought what quality looked like. I'm like, no, this does not meet those standards. But if it's found to be valuable, then so be it. What I'm starting to realize is that to me, it was a small effort. To me, that was like one very small pebble thrown into a massive lake. But if you think about it, it doesn't really matter what size the pebble is when you throw it into the lake. That ripple effect is still a ripple effect. So I've moved away from that, it's just a deck mindset. Yes. It's just a small effort, and realizing that's really what it takes to change the world, right? It's just people agreeing or people understanding that they can only do so much, and whatever it is that they decide to do can cause that ripple effect. We all have a pebble that we can throw into this massive lake and influence others and inspire others. No matter how small we think of it in our minds, it can be huge for other people. And so if anything, that deck has taught me that we all have a pebble to throw and we all have an impact to make. And it doesn't have to be us trying to, paint the town red. We can all start with what we have, where we're at, with what our skill sets allow, and create something from that, and do something with that to really help push this needle forward.
No matter how small we think it is. I'm still kind of challenging myself with that because stuff that we think is easy, it's easy for you because that's your thing. You're good at. You're supposed to be, good at this. So don't minimize it because other people are like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." It's something that you're like, "I just rolled out of bed and did it." No,
I have my bonnet on, like.
Right. So, what I want to do is we're going to close this segment out, but I want to tell everybody to go to standingunited.co to visit her website so that you can see the deck, all the different information that she has there. Lots of resources where you can go and find more resources, books, and all these things, right? Articles, absolutely. All of that. Follow her on LinkedIn. We will put a link to your LinkedIn page and the website in the show notes, as well as any other. Do you have any other places that people can follow you?
Those would probably be the best. LinkedIn and keeping up with Standing United has an Instagram page. I forgot. I just did it. Cool. Standingunited.co is the Instagram page, same as the website name. I'm hosting my first public facing event on Friday. Yes. Friday, 3 o'clock, I believe. So you want to be an ally is the name of it. 1 hour. We're gonna get into it. We're gonna talk about it. I'll present the deck and kind of run through some of my thoughts. So make sure you
Love it.
Um,
I'm going to pass that on as well.
I am too. So, and as we go out to the outro, I was going to ask you, hey, is there anything you want to tell your listeners? But I think you summed it up really well with the pebble. And so now I'm going to take what do I want my pebble when I throw it? What is that impact that I want to leave, that lasting impact? So I would tell listeners, think about the ripple effect of the pebble that you're going to throw out.
Everyone has a pebble, right?
Great to throw the pebble.
Yes. I want to talk about what's been going on this week.
Yes.
This week, as we're recording this, is Sunday. So we really came from Sunday to Sunday and it's been full. Okay. So Kim and I last week, we did not, we had a previously recorded episode with We Are Meaningful. Love those ladies, Krista and Crystal. Yes. They're amazing. Great platform for women of all colors. And we had a great event with them yesterday. They're Bring Your Own Snacks. They do it every month and they feature different sessions, mental health, and just all kinds of stuff. Really they had one called Blackity Black Black. And it was so awesome.
It made me think of Amanda Seales. Are you familiar with Amanda Seales, Jenae?
The comedian / actress.
Amanda Seales.
Insecure. She's on Insecure. She's Tiffany on Insecure.
Yes.
You watched Insecure, the one that just had the baby.
Oh, yeah.
So she has a segment or a platform called Smart Funny Black. And so she will travel and tour and basically it's edutainment. Okay. And she does something like Blackity Black Black Black.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Yeah. And it was an amazing event yesterday.
It was great. So oh my God. So we needed that. But when we, this week kind of started very somber, right? We had and I'm losing the guy's name in Lafayette, Louisiana, who was actually murdered by police in front of the gas station. And then we had Jacob Blake, which I'm sure this week everybody has been hearing that name because it has been we're having a replay of what happened with George Floyd.
Yeah.
So I just want to give a quick recap to our audience on what happened with Jacob Blake. He's 29 years old, a black man. He was shot by police August 23rd, and they shot at him 7 times. He was not resisting at the point at which they shot him because he was walking away. They shot him in his back in front of his 3 children who were in the car. They were very young children. And this was in Kenosha, Wisconsin. They were attempting to arrest him. I believe, was he handcuffed at the time? I feel like he was handcuffed.
I don't know that he was handcuffed.
He was walking back to his car.
Okay.
From what I understood.
Okay. Currently, he is paralyzed from those wounds. And apparently, they said they have him handcuffed to the hospital bed.
Yep.
And he's paralyzed.
Yep.
So this incident obviously kicked off a lot of the protests are still going on from George Floyd back in May, right? We're still doing that. And then it just elevated even more. So a couple things have taken place this week because of that. We had the NBA and some other sports boycotted on Wednesday. And I think it was more of a protest. It was their form of protest. That evening on Wednesday, obviously the playoffs are going on, and Milwaukee Bucks, who they play near Kenosha, Wisconsin, mentally felt like they could not be at their best, and they did not take the floor against their Orlando Magic and a few other teams. Really, all those NBA games that night were postponed, as well as WNBA. We had some 3 Major League Baseball games that were also postponed. So we put a pause to some things on Wednesday. What were you guys' thoughts about the NBA? What I'll call a protest. And
I'm a fan of any Black person with a platform actually standing up and bringing awareness to this. Whenever I think back to Colin Kaepernick all the time, because what Colin Kaepernick did and what he exposed showed a lot about the state of racism in America. So whenever I see other celebrities or athletes doing the same thing, I'm like, yes, expose the disconnect, because there's still more of it, right? There's still so much to uncover with how deep racism really, really goes. So I was completely supportive. I'm ready to see kind of like how this plays out, because if we remember Colin Kaepernick, they renegotiated his contract. Like and I don't know football terminology that well, but I know that what he did had a serious impact to his career as a football player. So I'm interested in seeing what happens with what has happened recently, because I want to believe we've progressed. There's progress made from Colin Kaepernick to now, but we're about to see. We're going to see how we really feel about racism and how we really feel about it, at least from a professional sports perspective.
Yeah, I think the NBA has been a little bit different from football in that the players, they're working with the owners. Like the owners some of them did come out saying like, hey, we support our players, whatever they want to do. Yeah. They had some extensive meetings apparently that night with LeBron. Chris Paul, I think, is over there like Players Association. You know, he's like the chairman of their thing. Michael Jordan, who's one of the only Black owners that is he's like a chairman of one of their, their association thing. They had a whole conversation about this over that evening and the next day. And apparently they came up with a list of kind of action items that they are asking specifically for the owners to take, the lead on. So I think they said it's some kind of like a justice
committee,
or something. So they're going to have action items for things, because obviously, they're not going to solve the world's racism, but these are people who have money, they have influence, they have impact. So they are listing out things.
Use their pebble.
Yeah, yes, their pebble. Come on, Kim, come on with it. I feel like there is a social responsibility of any of these mega million corporations, whether it's sports, whether it's in the business world, the tech world, there's a social responsibility. So I'm happy to hear that they are putting together these councils and these advisory groups, because everybody needs one of these. Like we need to have more representation in these rooms that make these decisions about how we plan on navigating and moving forward in whatever capacity. And so if they can be filled with people of color, minorities, the Black community, everybody, if they can have a proper representation of people of color in these advisory councils or whatever the case may be, I feel like that is, I would hope, a great investment in really changing the narrative of what racism looks like in America, at least from a business making or money making standpoint in the future.
Right. And I have to absolutely agree with you, Jenae. I think it was so timely, so needed, overdue. I just feel like, hey, we're good enough to run up and down these fields for you, but you can't support us when we're at the hands of a cop. We can be shot at any moment. Support us in that aspect outside of just playing basketball or football or whatever, to generate money. So I like the fact that like Mark Cuban is supporting the Dallas Mavs. He's always been supportive. We need this. And kind of going back to social responsibility, I know companies like AT&T, they have it. I know we have I don't know if we have social responsibility, but we do have a committee that they formed at Salesforce, which basically it outlines things that we can measure for the Black community. Like, okay, we don't have a lot of people in executive leadership roles in terms of African Americans. We need to increase that by 5% within the next 2 years. So like you said, these committees need to have actual actionable items that we can measure and confirm that this is going to be done as a result of these social responsibility committees or subcommittees or whatever the call to action is, because we can protest, but what are we protesting and what are we asking for? It's like, we want reparations, right? What does that look like?
Mm-hmm. we got to know what we're asking for, right?
Yes.
So whatever when you're protesting, like right now, the protests that are going on around the United States, talking about Black Lives Matter, talking about the situation with the police, there are asks that are attached to that, right? They're bringing awareness to issues. We have the George Floyd bill that's sitting on the desk waiting for, for some movement, and it probably will be there for a while. But there are specific things that we need to change in order for this to be a change for all around. Everybody, we just got through talking about the pebble, right? Everyone needs to take their position wherever they are. You're doing it at Google. You're doing it at Salesforce. I'm doing it at my company, right? Using our voices to help impact these different areas. Yeah. So I think the NBA, with them being, what are they? 90%, 85% Black men, right?
Yes.
I mean, come on, like you can't not, it's almost like it would be crazy not to, but I'm so proud of them for doing that. Even if it was just, just to put a pause on some of that for a couple of days.
Volumes.
Yeah, definitely. And the WNBA, they've been doing this, of course.
Yeah.
They have just always been about the social responsibility and bringing awareness to different things, which I would not expect anything less from them.
I know. I want to plus one that and just say, and not to even caveat, I just want to drop that I just think that there's so much power in what the NBA does, especially the WNBA too, right? Like they don't get nearly enough recognition.
Yeah.
And they don't get paid enough either.
Hello. Not going to talk about it though.
A whole nother.
We can get into them pay gaps, but
Right.
I just want to say that there's power in using platform. And we got to make sure that we're not so consumed with capitalism and our standing with our jobs and our reputation that we will forgo, the opportunity to expose, the injustice that our people are seeing because we want that paycheck, right? We gotta really call it cap to the bourgeois of us all. Like it's not, this is the all-in effort. It can't just be some of us, it has to be all of us. And we really gotta make sure that the folks that work in corporate America are really upholding that responsibility, or anybody who has a platform is upholding that responsibility to bring awareness and activation however they can.
We talked about this yesterday at the event, and I was like, I have the privilege of being a girl from, underserved community. I'm from straight up hood. Okay. So I've lived that viewpoint. I've lived that life. I relate to what goes on in those neighborhoods and all that. I also have the privilege of, being in these corporate spaces as well. And so I try to use that to help me bridge these different gaps, right? In misunderstandings and all these different things that people might look at someone from the hood a certain way. And I'm like, you're looking at that person. You're looking at me. That is me. But I've been laid off a few times. My daddy always says there's a price to freedom, right?
Okay.
Because I am passionate about this, and I have a hard time being quiet when things are said around me that are not true or they're not productive, kind of in that space. And so I do think it is a responsibility for us who are in these rooms to use our voice to represent our people, period.
I have a question, and I know there's so much to talk about. Okay, I'm going to ask my question, and I want us to keep it as short as possible just so we can keep up with the agenda. But out of curiosity, how do you ladies feel about that conversation? So like thinking about using platform to bring awareness, uplift, empower, etc. And you guys have probably heard the narrative from people within our community that it's not our responsibility to educate, people who are looking to learn. Do you feel like knowing that if you have a platform, you need to utilize it? Do you feel like there's a conflict there or like some contradiction?
Yes.
What are your thoughts?
Contradictions and
Absolutely.
caveats.
Yes, I agree. So I feel like if you have the platform and you have that gift, because some of us have a gift of, I have a gift of relating to people who don't look like me, right? And so that might be something that I need to do, is to help educate and inform. Whereas
Somebody else.
I still feel like they need to take initiative as well to go and seek, because you go and seek other information that you want to learn about. So you need to want to learn about this as well.
Ditto. I'm the same way. I feel like I'm a bridge builder. That's just been where my purpose has led me to be able to do that, right? And so I agree with Kim in that I need to see movement. I feel like this with everything in my life. I need to see that you're doing something towards this, and then I will help you along the way if I need to, right? It's like, don't just sit there being lazy. You haven't picked up a book. You haven't looked at a YouTube. You haven't done anything. And you're like, tell me, so what's the problem? You're not starting from zero. You're not starting from zero. Exactly. I need you to have shown me that you put some work in, and now you're listening to my experience, because you need a real life person. It's like if I went and talked to someone who was like a grandchild of a slave, someone who was a slave or something like that. I'm like, whoa, I'm going to get some firsthand accounts of things that I don't know because I just read them, right? I just heard about them through someone else. So if you're coming to me because you just are like, tell me more about what this feels like or what that looks like or something like that, I'm fine with that. I'm totally fine with that, but I'm not going to start you from 101.
Right.
There has
to be some self-motivated learning to take place before we even start those conversations.
There's so many books and films, and
now they have Jenae's presentation that they can go and leverage. Log in and get additional resources.
Exactly. I want to kind of jump. I mean, this kind of leads into one of the other things. I mean, we were going to talk about the protest, but I feel like, we already know what's up with the protests. It's just straight up lies, racism, people in there antagonizing and starting stuff that's not even a part of the movement just to create that controversy with the police and the government not supporting Black Lives Matter, all these things. We already know where that's at.
Yeah.
You kind of brought this up when you were talking about your journey and things. We lost Chadwick Boseman this week, who represented something for us as Black people in the movie Black Panther as King T'Challa. He has taken on roles that represent all of our heroes, right? We got Jackie Robinson, Thurgood Marshall, and other roles that he's taken on. And even just in his speeches and his way he spoke about being Black.
Like a preacher's son. I'm like, who raised you?
He throwing scriptures out. It was like he knew he said it a couple times about like this was a part of his purpose, and he felt fulfilled in the work, right? He was able to pick this work in a certain way. Representation, in our careers, in our just empowerment. Some people look at Oprah and they're like, that made me feel like I can be whatever. We're talking about Michelle Obama. We're talking about all this. How important, do you guys feel, or how do you feel about like representation and its various forms?
It absolutely matters. And I've said it before, you can't be what you don't see. Like, if you don't see it, it kind of goes back to what you said, Jenae. You were in a family where you said it was either be a nurse or a doctor. They knew no one who was in tech that looked like you.
Yeah.
Or that looked
tech wasn't even a thing, right? They don't know tech. People who are older, we all have. Me and Kim talk about this all the time.
Computers.
My parents, they say you're gonna be in computers, but like, because that's what it was when we were growing up, right?
Yeah.
Computers. I even said that at 17. I'm like, I'm gonna work in computers. I don't know what kind of computers yet.
I said the same thing.
That was the goal right then, right? Because we had no idea about what innovation was going to turn into. And I had no representation. I had no one that I was right with you in your story when you were like, if I known the stuff I was digging into, what I was doing, I was breaking computers apart, putting it back together. I was doing all kind of stuff. I had no idea that was a job. I thought it was fun.
Yeah. Exactly. Representation matters so much. I'm thinking back. So you're right. Like if we compare now to like when we were growing up and how we just had a lack of, people who were working in the spaces that we were gravitating towards. And I think about where we are now. First off, all things considered, disclaimer, Kamala, vice president. I didn't know we could do that. I mean, I understand people hold their reservations with Kamala. I get that. But just to have a Black woman
on the ticket,
that to me is powerful in its own right. And then even Google hiring Kamala, who is our VP she's basically our chief legal officer, our CLO.
I think I saw that.
Have y'all seen her picture? Have y'all seen this young, youthful, natural hair with her little 4C curl pattern?
Through.
To me, that type of representation matters. And I hate that we lost Chadwick so much because he meant so much to these little Black boys and Black girls. He meant so much to our community. Like, I mean, outside of like his accomplishments and what he did for Marvel and the Oscars that he brought, he really like became a role model to the community.
He did.
He really embodied a lot. And now that we even know more of his story and the fact that he's been battling this cancer since 2016, like, oh my God, that makes him even more of a superhero, right?
We had no complaint about anything. This man did 4 movies without saying a word.
That is beautiful. And so, like, I hate that we lost him, but I learned a lot when we lost Nipsey. It's not that we're losing them in physical form, but we got them on our spirit side.
Yes.
And that's everlasting. So, like, I'm comforted because I remember when we lost Nipsey, that hurt and that still hurts. Mm-hmm. But so many people were activated to like get into the culture and invest. And so
buy up the block.
Yes. Yep. Like so much happened because of Nipsey's death, and he lives on because people are really carrying his honor. They're going to do the same with Chadwick. They're going to do like
with Kobe, with John Lewis.
Yes.
All these people we lost.
To me, I'm looking at it that they've been called to the ancestral plane because they got work to do to activate more of us and to really guide more of us. That's the take that I'm putting on it. I'm trying not to like losing Chadwick just really that hurts. But I know that is an indicator that he's needed more on the spiritual side than he is here in physical form, and I'm gonna take that. I know that means that some more of us need to be activated and guided, and we need to move in the spirit of what he's done, and his legacy needs to basically activate more of us. So
we all have our it should fire up your desire to live your purpose, because maybe Jesus was only here for 3 years and his purpose was fulfilled. 33 he was done. 43 Chadwick, but we got Kobe, we got these young people who did a lot in their little bit of time. So it really encouraged me to be like, it's time to get going with this, because honestly,
get the pebble.
Once you do what you're supposed to do, what do we need to be here for? I mean, ultimately, that's why you're here. You have a reason for being.
There's your purpose. Yeah. And clearly he fulfilled his. Clearly Kobe fulfilled his as well. But like, he lived such a beautiful life. There's a tweet on Twitter that I think about almost on a daily basis since his passing, which is, we did right by celebrating Black Panther the way that we did.
My God.
We went out by this man. And that gives me comfort because we celebrated him in life and we will continue to celebrate him even in death. And I feel good about what he's done and how we reacted to it. And that gives me comfort.
My kids still have Black Panther bedding since then. So they've been having that. They had the costumes for Halloween. It was a big deal with our friends. I saw the movie like 4 times, I think. I was just so like, I wish this was real.
It's gonna hit different rewatching that movie now, but like his legacy still lives on. Just the way that Nipsey hustled, it's the same way that Kobe Bryant, like they still live on. John Lewis, like all of these really pivotal, important catalysts in our culture we won't forget them. We're going to continue to make honor of them. And so that makes it okay for me.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
That was a heavy week. That was a heavy week, especially for our Black males.
Listen, yesterday I went for a walk and I didn't realize, I knew it was a rough week. I felt it on Friday. But I went out to walk and I shed a few tears a couple of times during the walk because I just was like, as I'm just walking down the street and I'm looking at the different people in different cars and everything going on, and I'm like, you just have these moments of like, why? Like, why is it like this for us? Like, I don't know God's plan. I know He has one. I'm encouraged by different things that let me know that He does have a plan. It was something that I was listening to. It's a podcast called Teaching Hard History. I've been listening to it because I'm homeschooling my kids, and this is actually been put into curriculum where they were just talking about different ways to teach about slavery. And one of them was some accounts from Nat Turner, and right before he was about to get lynched, and he talked about him feeling like he fulfilled his purpose in that moment, in which they were like, well, now that the guy who was interviewing him at the time was like, do you feel like you were wrong now that you're about to get lynched? And he was like, they crucified Jesus. Right. So, like, no, this is not making me feel like I'm wrong because of what's going to happen. So even though I'm not going to be here, it don't matter. This was a part of my, my journey, which I'm just like, oh Lord, like it's so spiritual to me. Like it's so spiritual.
Can this I have whole thing to y'all?
Yes.
How do y'all feel you're aligning with your purpose now? Where do you feel that you land with that as it stands?
I definitely feel like I'm in alignment with my purpose. Because if I glance back, everything makes sense.
The dots connect, yes. Right?
Everything makes sense. Me join it just from the point of right now where I'm at with this company. It makes sense of why I'm here, why this is the company right now. Like every single thing is opening, is just opening up, but it's the more that I grow with God, because last year was my faith journey. I was growing more faith with God, and like the trust that I need it for now, right? I needed that to get me through this COVID and all this stuff. And I still have my ups and downs because I'm in the flesh, right? But continuing to grow my relationship with God is helping me to see you're on the right track. You're doing the right movements, and it's to the point where I'm just like, today, what am I supposed to be doing today? Okay. Like it's at that level, right?
Yeah.
Day by day.
Yeah.
Right. I would have to agree. And I look back on that journey, and I look back at the doors that were closed. I look back at the people that were removed. I couldn't go unless they were removed from. He's like, I can't let you go any further because they are attached to you, and you won't do well with them attached to you.
Pastor Kim on this Sunday. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So I look back at that, like the breakups, like, okay, that wasn't bad after all. That was a blessing. Okay.
Thank you.
Talk about it.
Thank you. And so, and even like you being at this company all that time. All right, yeah, you put in all that time, but you're done.
Yes.
That chapter is closed. All right, let me open up this new door for you, right? And don't be fearful. Yeah. So I feel like it, like Ari says, the doors are opening.
You know what? I want to say one thing. It's not that we shouldn't be fearful. We should acknowledge that fear and still move forward
anyway.
Yes.
Do it anyway.
Fear is a natural human tendency. We can't avoid it. We have to take that and still push past it. That is a problem that we see with so many things. Our comfort zone.
You can't grow in comfort.
You can't.
Everything that's meant for you is literally exactly outside of your comfort zone.
You are absolutely right.
And it's all about you pushing past that fear and looking at God. Y'all don't know. I got a tattoo on my back that says I was 19 and madly in love with my old little boo thing from whatever year that was. And we were in Florida, and I got a tattoo that says, where faith is present, fear is absent. And I got that at 19, and like I felt something from it, but only in like the last like 4 or 5 years has it really started to make sense.
When you had to activate your faith, because I'm telling you that stuff from when I grew up Pentecostal, so we were rooted and grounded in that, you know, in the word. But all that stuff, all those songs and everything back then was like we singing the songs. Now those songs come back to me. Those scriptures come back to me because they make sense now. I'm like,
they do.
I get why they said that, you know.
Trust in the Lord with all thine heart.
The goodness of Jesus and all that he's done for me. My soul cries out, hallelujah. That is real. Like, I'm like, if I start thinking about all the things that God has brought me from and brought me through, that actually gives me the motivation to press a little harder when something is rough, you know, for me right now. It's like, you know what? He did it for you then. He did it for, you know, this person. He did it for that person, you know, and it's just, I think that faith has a lot to do with that.
Yes,
for sure.
I know faith has a lot to do with it.
I need Black women, Black people to understand that entire concept. He will not fail you. What's for you will always be. It doesn't matter how many doors shut in front of you. Let me tell y'all real quick. I'm not preaching.
Come on.
I knew that's why I told her to stay. I'm like, we gonna
I'm glad.
Get it popping. Keep going.
I want to talk about when I moved over to Google, right? So first off, when I went to Microsoft, I was a junior in college and I needed a job. And so I was applying to like Best Buy, Apple, Microsoft Store, trying to find somebody who was going to bite. My very first interview at the Microsoft retail store was with a Black woman, and she grilled me. And I'm like, oh, I definitely didn't get this job. I can just let this dream go, because I've always wanted to work at Microsoft. I love their technology, their computers. And it was the hardest interview to this day that I ever had. So I was like, oh, no, I definitely didn't make it. But she ended up hiring me. And so, like, that journey was complete. I needed a job. I really just needed someone to like help me get into tech a little bit more. I couldn't get an internship in college. I got kicked out of my program my junior year, moving into senior year. Like in my goal was to make my way into the tech space, and I just couldn't do it. So I got that job very unintentionally. I just was trying to get some money in my pocket, and that ended up opening the door to my career in tech. So then 5 years later, I'm approaching my 5-year anniversary. It's probably like May, right? And my 5-year anniversary at Microsoft is in September. And I told myself in May, Jenae, by September, we need to make something happen. A pivot needs to happen in some degree. And I was applying for job after job after job. Nobody was calling me back. I got 5 years of experience of Microsoft.
You're like, hello, do you have a resume? Yes or no?
And so, like, it was a really trying experience. The only person that called me back after like multiple declines was Google. They were the only person that put me through interviews. They were the only person I ended up interviewing with. And here I am a year later. Like,
that was for you.
It was for me. It doesn't matter how many doors close. It doesn't matter what happens. It's where you go based off of where those doors close, right?
Closed and open doors all can come from God. He will close doors that need to be closed. I tell him, I was like, close the ones that need to be closed and open the ones that need to be open, because I don't want to walk in a closed one that's supposed to be closed. Okay. I ain't prying no doors open now.
I love that story, and I think we all have a similar story like that. And I love to hear Black women overcome.
Yes.
We've overcome, you know.
We deserve to overcome. We deserve
flowers. We do. While we're here.
And being open-minded and really just trusting. That's why you got to have that relationship, because you just got to trust the movement. Because the Bible talks about how God will give you the desires of your heart. And the way I interpret that is that what we think we want.
Right.
Don't worry about that. He will make it where you want what he wants. When you start, the closer you get with him, you're going to desire what he wants for you. Like, there's stuff where I'll be like, I remember when I was younger, I want somebody to act right. I want them to be the one. And it's like, hey, not the one. Okay, stop. But then God will change your heart, about that, and be like, that's not, and you be like, you know what, I'm good, God.
And you'll be at peace with it. And you'll be at peace with it too.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Wow.
We can talk forever, but we're not.
I know.
We could talk forever. I'm like, this could be we got a whole bunch of stuff we could talk about. I did want to touch on one thing that popped up today, which was Breonna Taylor, kind of just update on that case, which Attorney General Daniel, what's his name? Cameron. He been talking about this ballistics report. I got to get the ballistics report to make all the blah, blah, blah. Okay, they got it. Now he's talking about it's inconclusive and all this junk.
How is it inconclusive when she was shot while she was sleeping?
The police chief himself said this officer, the one who shot the gun, was reckless. He shot, I think it was like 10 times into the house, and it went into some neighbors' houses as well.
Oh my God.
He specifically said that. And I'm like, what more do you need to get to this? So I feel like it's very political. I feel like when they were interviewing him and he talked about all this, it's very, he was at the Republican National Convention just kissing butt. Because Trump endorsed him, so I know that they've all been given their marching orders for why they got endorsed and how they, whatever. So everything kept referring back to and Trump this and that, and it's like we're not talking about Trump. We're talking about Breonna Taylor, and we are just
we're talking about basic morals, right? We're talking about basic human empathy. Like we honestly, this year has been so trying. Like.
Yeah,
Breonna Taylor is more than deserving of justice.
Yep,
and I just want more deserving of justice. George,
because it's a question of, to me, it's like when we get, and we were going to touch on this earlier, but it's okay to protest when we're protesting about how coronavirus is fake and we don't need to wear masks and we need to reopen the country and all these things. We could protest for that. Bring your guns to the Capitol. No issues, no conflicts. We're protesting for Black lives to matter. That's it. At this point, that's really the core of everything that you're seeing with these protests. And we're literally being faced with people shooting and murdering people. Kyle whatever his name is. Let me say his name because I want people to.
Rittenhouse.
Yes. Rittenhouse. Killed 2 protesters, 2 people. Police just let him go by until they finally went and arrested him. But he's been glorified by people saying, this is why I voted for Trump. People like him. This is why, and stuff. And then we got a caravan of MAGA folks that shot someone in Portland yesterday and killed someone, and Trump is retweeting this stuff saying great patriots and great, this and that. And it's like, for anybody who's out there listening to this podcast, if you cannot see that this man is a flat out racist, I don't know what's wrong with you. I'm sorry. I just don't get morally how anybody could be behind that. We're not going to like every single thing about every politician out there. I don't like everything about every person that I deal with on the regular. But yes, there's going to be some things in, some of these politicians past that is not, great, but we know what we got with this guy. We know. Yeah. And honestly, our votes are at stake here. We got talking about Voting Rights Act. We're talking about us not being able to freely vote the way that we should be able to, and our votes counting. It's a lot involved. So we got to really get engaged. That's why knowing this AG was voted.
Someone voted
for this man.
They did.
So we got to really pay attention to who these people are and what their patterns are, because we can't just be out here voting for everybody. We need to really research these folks and see, are they going to represent what you need them to represent for human rights? We're not even talking about politics, but yeah.
Look, I'm looking for some information. We can probably share this in y'all follow up about how to go about voting. I think this year, every election is critical, and we deserve so much. We need to be able to educate people in this particular realm as well. So I'm going to make sure you guys have some resources that I have access to about going about voting this time. I know that we are living in a really odd experience right now, and voting may be a little bit limited to a lot of folks. And so I have some information, I just can't access it off the top of my head, about the deadlines in which we need to abide by in order to get our mail-in votes if we don't plan on being in person. We need to have these dates set in stone, and we need to understand who's up for election. We need to be able to understand all of that. And so I'll provide those for you guys so you can pass them along.
Thank you. We have a resource section on boldblackgirls.com. So we will add standingunited.co as well as whatever resources you provide to our resource area. And what's our call to action, Kim? Do we have a call?
This was a lot.
Look, the first one I want to tell people is just take a break. And that's going to be every week, I feel like. Every week is like, take time to yourself.
Yes. Take care of yourself mentally, emotionally. I know you took a walk. I don't know what you do, Jenae, for your mental health and self-care.
What do I probably, my call to action would be very similar to that whole idea of prioritizing mental health. Set some intentions for this week, y'all.
Yes.
Set some intentions.
Set some intentions for the new month, because September is this
here,
month.
right? We're here.
We're here.
I feel like we need to set some intentions, and that includes setting intentions for self-care as well. Let's be purposeful when we walk into September. Let's make sure that whatever our goals, no matter how big or small they are, we can achieve those, and be mindful trying to move forward. But really, if anything, I want to plus 1,000 to take a break.
Sometimes you just gotta be okay with just doing nothing.
Yeah, just do that first.
And if you have kids, this is what I suggest. You don't put them in timeout. Say, I'm going in timeout.
I always put myself in timeout.
Switch it up. Say, I used to tell my daughter, oh, you're not in timeout, but I am. So you can't talk to me right now because I'm in timeout. So take that time out.
Yeah, that's something that I do. When I get off of work, I need 30 minutes. My kids know that. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a break. So does anybody need anything right now? They know that this is mom's break time.
Not boundaries.
I might light an incense in the bathroom. I might have a candle lit or something. I might go sit outside. Whatever I do, I just want to detox so then I can be present for them, right? Later. So yeah.
I want to plug in a Black-owned spiritual company that sells amazing incense. It's Soulful. Oh God, what are they called? Soulful.
Well, send it to us. Make sure we can put it in the notes. Cause
send it to us.
I have to share with you. I think I sent it to Aries last night. So I'm not big on social media. She gets on me about not getting on Instagram and all that other stuff. I need to do better. I know that. But I like Twitter. But I don't always tweet, but I will read. So I'm looking at OWN yesterday, girlfriend check-in, and they had some lavender sage in their box. So I was like, oh, I want that. And they said the 25th tweet will win the box. So I have a box. I'm a winner.
She won.
I won the girlfriend check-in from a tweet. So I'm going to use that sage to...
get them spirits.
But listen, don't forget, when you sage, open your windows so you can air all of that out, and then tie it with some incense. Yeah.
And also, we're not sponsored by them, but Bath and Body Works. You know, they just had a sale. I ordered some vanilla sage candles. They had a candle sale. They have vanilla sage candles. It's not a super strong smell, you know what I mean? But it still kind of has that a little bit of that in there. But anyway, all right, y'all, we're gonna talk forever. We ain't gonna never end this episode.
I know. Okay, this was so good.
I want to just say one last thing. It's soulfulvibes.co.
Okay.
So soulfulvibesco.com. That's the name of the incense, Black-owned. You can get all your intention setting, crystals, sage, incense. Everything you need.
Whatever y'all into.
Whatever you need.
Yes. Get your shirts from boldblackgirls.com as well. Make sure you share this episode with a friend. We will be sharing our Bold Black Girl of the Month segment on LinkedIn. So if you're not following all of us, please make sure you are following us on LinkedIn because we will be having this featured as one of our articles. All right. So thank you, Jenae, again for being our guest.
Yes,
we really
have enjoyed
appreciated
this.
it. And Kim, you got any last words?
I say don't give up the fight. Keep pushing, educate, prepare for this upcoming election, be informed, and get ready.
Get ready. We got more to do, y'all. This is not over. I know we had a rough week and we're going to have more rough weeks ahead, but that does not mean give up. We are going to continue to fight for our rights. This is something we are going to do until we die. Okay. Teach your children how to do it, because we got to pass this mantle on to continue to do this. Our people been doing this for 400 years. They've been resisting. They have been rebelling. They have been going forth, and we are here today because we come from that kind of blood and that heart. So if you're here, you already know, like, your people are fighters. So
Evangelist Aries, come on.
Keep it going. All right. We love y'all. We will want you to have a bold week, and we'll see y'all next time.
All right. Peace.
Bye.